Hi everyone, today we are going to create an owl inspired by the story Owl Moon. Now, you have a choice in terms of material. You can use crayon if that's what you have available, that's great. If you have oil pastel, I recommend that personally because I think it's a little bit brighter, it just shows up better. But the crayon will show up, it's just not as bright, not as vibrant as the oil pastel. So that is up to you. If you're gonna use crayons, maybe you have the big box and maybe there's some construction paper crayons in there, or some of the metallics, or even just some of these metal named crayons. Those ones do tend to show up a little bit better. You can always just test your crayons on the back to see how well they show up, because obviously white shows up really well. I found that these ones that are named after the metals like copper show up pretty well. Yellow, surprisingly, you would think it would show up well because it seems like a lighter color, but it doesn't show up that bright. So you just kind of have to play around and see what works as far as which crayons show up the best. Now, when you get started, I have some different examples here of types of owls you can draw. The great horned owl was the story Owl Moon's owl that they discovered when they were owling at night. So that you can certainly do one like that, but you can really choose any of these, and you can even kind of mix and match. Like if you like the head from one, but maybe you want the body from a different one, you can kind of pick and choose those parts as needed. There are 6 different owl examples here for you. When you get started, you're going to want to start with white. You're going to be doing your drawing in white. If you're the type of person that likes to be able to erase and you want to use a pencil first, that's fine. You just trace your lines when you're done. And then you can get started. I am going to start with, I think, the face here. So when I look at this first step, I notice the eyes. You want to make sure the eyes are above the middle of the paper, or else you're not going to have room for the other parts. And I'm going to start with the circles here. So there's one eye, and I'm drawing pretty big. You don't want to make this too small. So I always say that the whole owl should be bigger than your hand when you're done. All right. So there are the eyes and the beak. That's that first step there. And then it looks like I'm going to actually make a line. Kind of reminds me of binoculars, which is appropriate since owls have binocular vision. And then the top, sort of that feathery plume that some owls have for the, kind of looks like ears. Now, as far as the body goes, that body's okay, I like it, but I think I like this one better. So I'm gonna go to this step here where I'm adding on actually part of the body, and that is the wing. So a zigzag line down, and then kind of a curve back up, and then the belly and the branch. And the branch you can see kind of is tucked under the wing. Comes out maybe about here, and then gets a little bit bigger as it heads back towards the tree. All right, and then in this last step here, it looks like I'm adding the foot, kind of using a bumpy line, and then in this one there is a tail hanging out below the branch. So once you have drawn your owl, then you're going to move on to adding some details, and that could be things like the moon, owl moon. It was a moon out. You could do a full moon, or you could do a crescent moon or a half moon. You can also add snowflakes. Obviously it was very snowy when they were out. You can also do stars, or even like little swirls of wind. So that is up to you to decide what kind of little details you want to add to your picture. I think I'm going to do a crescent moon in this one, and I'm going to put it up here. You could even add a little bit of the snow far below if you wanted to. And then obviously just think about, you know, do you want wind? I'm going to do some wind swirls in this one. And then I'm going to do some far away snowflakes. So I do an X with a line when they're far away. When they're close up, I tend to make that X in a line a little bit bigger, and then I add in some other details as well. And then I'm going to finish up with either some really far away snowflakes, they could be really far away, or they could be stars. You want to make sure you kind of take care of that background all the way around, above and below the branch. Now, once you're done doing that drawing part, then you can move on to coloring. Now, most realistic owls have different kinds of browns and grays and whites and tans mixed in. And if you want to go and make it look like a real owl, you can use those colors. If you want to play around with imaginary colors, that's fine too. So I like to do color blending. So I call it a gradient. It gradually changes from one color to another. So when I do something like that, I usually pick 2 colors or 3, and then they kind of meet and blend in the middle. So if I were going to do that maybe for the wing here, when I'm coloring, I'm going to start, with 1 color. And I want to do my best 3-star coloring. Obviously, the thicker you color it, the better it's going to look. And these are showing up really bright because I am using the oil pastels for this. And then I'm going to do this next color here on the other half, and then I'll kind of blend them in the middle. Now, I like to leave the white lines showing. I prefer not to cover over them. You certainly could if you wanted less of the white lines showing, but I actually kind of like the edges in white because it reminds me of the moonlight glowing on the owl. All right, now as far as blending, it depends on the colors, which ones are going to kind of blend into the others better. So I usually do a little bit of one color on top of the other, and then I switch back, and then I blend down a little bit of the other color on top. You can also use your finger and kind of blend with your finger. You just have to be kind of careful with that. Sometimes it doesn't, it kind of almost looks like it erases it, so you just want to be careful. All right, so you can do things like that. You want to try and color your whole owl. I usually leave the centers of the eyes black, but otherwise you want to color the whole owl. You also want to color the branch, the moon, and in this one I would probably color that snowy hill there at the bottom as well. So the other thing that you can do once you've done the coloring, and it works both in crayon and in oil pastel, is you can add a feather pattern onto the owl. And you can do that a couple of ways. If you want to make the feathers kind of longer, you can do what I call the letter J way. So I'm just making a row of letter J's together. So you can do it like that. Some people like to do them more kind of like a zigzag like that. So you can do feathers like that as well. Or you could do letter U, which is like a bumpy line. That's going to make obviously shorter feathers. And you can play around with that. You can certainly do like a whole pattern. So letter J, basically like a letter V or a letter U makes pretty good feathers. And you can add those on like just the wing if you want, or you can add them everywhere. It's just an added detail that makes your owl look more realistic and interesting. So I hope you have fun. Enjoy making your owls.